Okay, I guess we'll call this meeting to order. Can we get a roll call?
Yes, Member Carson.
Carson present.
Member Cowan.
Aye.
Thank you.
Here.
Member Landsberg.
Rich Landsberg Woodland, you're present.
Thank you. And Member Provenza.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to some action items and we'll consider approval of the agenda.
I'll move approval of the agenda. I didn't see any changes.
I'll second
Okay,
that.
Okay, we got a motion by
Carson.
Carson and a second by Provenza. We'll take a roll call vote, please.
Member Carson.
Carson, aye.
Member Cowan.
Aye.
Member Landsberg.
Aye.
And Member Provenza.
Okay,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, the next item is considering approval of the July 22nd meeting minutes.
They looked accurate to me. I'm happy to move approval of the minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Landsberg.
Okay, I think we got a second from Landsberg. So we have a motion by Carson and a second by Landsberg to approve the minutes from the July 22nd meeting. And we'll do a roll call vote.
Member Carson.
Carson, aye.
Member Cowan.
Aye.
Member Landsberg.
Aye.
And Member Provenza.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. Next item is public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Animal Services Planning Agency on subjects that are related to our business and not otherwise on the agenda. You will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody with their hands raised or any written public comment?
I don't see any hands raised, Chair. I don't know if staff have any written comments.
None that we are aware of at this time.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on. And next, we're going to receive an update on the Animal Services Planning Agency work plan and provide some feedback. And I think Van is going to take this one.
Sure. So, hi, everyone. This is Eric Will, Management Analyst with the Yolo County Administrator's Office. So I do have the pleasure today of introducing one of our newest staff members, Joanne Van Hoosier, who will be running us through the presentation. And so today is her first meeting, and we're excited to have her here to support this effort. So Joanne, take it away.
Hello, everyone. As Eric said, I'm Joanne Van Hoosier and the newest management analyst in the County Administrator's Office. Just a little of my background. I came from the County of Ventura, had 10 years there as an internal audit manager. And before that, I was with the City and County of San Francisco. So I'm just super excited to be at the CAO's office in my new home of Yolo County. We've got extended family here. So just super excited to be here. And so we've got a PowerPoint presentation for today. Get that on the screen. Thank you so much. So if we'll go to the next slide. What we're going to start with is just a brief recap of our previous JPA meetings. At the most recent July 22nd meeting, we got some great insight into the challenges that Animal Services is facing and the need for both interim and long-term solutions. So today, Stephanie Amato, the Director of Animal Services, is going to be sharing some additional perspective on some of those interim needs that Animal Services is addressing. And the goal is to provide that information for the members' consideration in shaping the JPA's strategic planning efforts in terms of finalizing a mission statement and goals and objectives for the JPA. So with that, we'll go to a quick recap of our previous meetings. So the first meeting of the official JPA, I believe, was October 1st, 2020. And that provided some insight on past animal services working group efforts over the years, and a draft timeline for strategic planning. In December 2020, there was a strategic brainstorming session where the group reviewed a draft shared vision, mission statement, and goals. And then in February 2021, there were, a lot of changes, a lot of new things to announce. We had some new members join this JPA board, and Stephanie Amato was confirmed as the permanent Animal Services Director. I'm not sure exactly the timing of when she was, but it was announced to this group in February. And Stephanie provided a really great presentation on just the breadth of animal services duties, just so much more than dog catchers at the pound. And then in the most recent July 22nd meeting, Stephanie provided a presentation on challenges in animal services, and an important and key role of this JPA is determining how to move towards replacement for the current shelter facilities. But the presentation in July really raised my awareness of the interim solutions that animal service needs in the here and now. So the goal of today's meeting, if we can go to the next slide, is to provide some additional details on animal services, some actions that they can take here and now, some opportunities for quick wins, as well as interim and our long-term solutions. And then the purpose is to provide the board with information and perspective. So the board is not being asked to approve the plan that Stephanie will be discussing, but rather to consider how the interim needs that Animal Services has might impact the shared vision, mission, and values of the JPA and moving forward. So with that, I believe we can go to the next slide. And I'll turn it over to Stephanie to introduce just what she's going to be discussing.
Thank you. Thank you all for this opportunity. So what we will start with is I'd like to talk about some of our recent accomplishments too. I know we've talked about the things that need to be done, like the wish list around here, but just want to give an update on some recent accomplishments in the last year. We have installed new swamp coolers in our dog building. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes. And if Lupita could put the so this is just a quick overview of the different items included in the plan, and we're going to put the actual document that was included as attachment A or attachment B to the agenda on the screen for everyone to look at as Stephanie discusses.
Sorry, I got ahead of myself there.
Oh, sorry. My
I'm
apologies.
really excited about swamp coolers. I know.
Right?
I know. Okay, so yeah, so as you can see, some recent accomplishments here. Swamp coolers for our dog building, which in those really, those over 100-degree days was a necessity. And so our units were over 10 years old and had been fixed as much as they could. So that was a huge thing that has just recently in July was finished. We have just replaced our high pressure washing system, which it was over 22 years old. And so that's another one. They do not make the parts to fix it. And so that is for our dog kennels and really has made a huge difference with the efficiency of our staff cleaning and the conditions that the dogs, just getting them in and out and nice and clean. We did paint dog adoption area in the very beginning of the pandemic, and the space is more inviting. And although we are, we've modified how we do our adoptions as far as letting public come through, it is such a brighter, lighter space for the dogs in that area. We've increased our social media presence, doing weekly segments on ABC 10 during the entire pandemic and continuing. Increased our following on Instagram and Facebook, which has really helped get the word out as far as the animals that can be, that are available for adoption, especially during the pandemic when everyone was worried and our doors were physically closed. We were still placing animals into their forever homes. We've increased our fosters during the pandemic, improved our kitten foster, which we are slowly coming out of kitten season. But at one point we had over 200 kittens in homes, taking care of the underage kittens until they were ready to come back to the shelter to be adopted. We've been holding weekly microchip and rabies clinics. We did have to discontinue that, but it was curbside, which was really nice. due to staffing shortages come in July, but it is something that we definitely need to move on. Again, our cooperative TNR, and that's the trap, neuter, return. We have been partnering with Yola Spay Neuter Group, and they are managing all those, the unaltered community cat program. So that was, so pre-kitten season, we were doing 15 cats per weekday. And now we are just slowly getting back into where we have some availability again to do that. So we'd like to, those are the things we have already accomplished. And then here's some quick win opportunities. So a challenge for us is that our after hours, the call outs. So this is where the community calls out, and it is not an, so a true emergency, but how the process works is a sergeant needs to approve the overtime for those non-emergency calls. And right now the community has been getting the message to just turn those animals loose, which, as you can imagine, is not, that's not what we would like to be done, but we are pretty limited as far as, you know, people being asked to hold on to those animals overnight. So we do ask them for that, but that's a big ask, especially with unknown animals. So for us, it would be, Winters already does this. They have purchased kennels, and I think it's a double kennel if I remember correctly. And so when their officers or members of the public find stray animals that are not injured, dogs or cats, I know that they've placed cats in there as well, but they will hold them overnight. And sometimes the owner actually contacts dispatch in the meantime, and they can reunite them right there. So real quick win would also be, which would really, I think, the community would appreciate, is if each of our local police departments could house those dogs overnight. West Sacramento does it. I think that they could use an extra kennel, but we do frequently pick up animals that have been there overnight from people either who have been taken into custody, or the officers find them in the middle of the night. So that's something that definitely, it doesn't seem like a really big ask, but I think that it could make a big impact for the community.
Stephanie,
Yes.
if I can interrupt for just a minute about having the kennels at the Winters Police Department. I did get a note from our police chief, Chief Miller, who's usually on these calls, but he has training today. And he did mention this has been really successful for us because, one, we don't have to call animal control for after hours because that cost everybody money. But more importantly, they push it real heavily right away through social media. And a big majority of the time, these animals are getting reunited with their owners within a day or so. So it's really worked out relatively well. They've had to kind of develop their own kind of guidelines for how long they'll keep them and you know, trying to keep them cool, those kind of things. But it has worked out real well here in Winters with our police department taking them in and trying to find the owners before they go to animal control. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
We could have the next slide, please. Another quick win would be, so our social media, it's currently run and managed by a few of our staff and volunteers. And as that influx of staffing and people's schedules happens, we do have inconsistent posting, no matter how hard we try, so that it does decrease the visibility of adoptable animals. And a solution would be that we would be able to have a dedicated paid social media team lead. And we are piloting a teen program. So I've been working on that throughout the summer and really trying to, a lot of teens, high schoolers need community service hours for their graduation requirements. And I really, being a mom of a 15-year-old, know how much time is spent on that social media. And so really wanting to get them involved and just having them help with some of our, you know, our postings. And, but this would take someone to oversee it. And right now it is a joint effort here, but it would be nice to be able to have an extra help. So the resources would be an extra help position, 1,000-hour position, but that person is just dedicated to managing that. And there's lots of volunteers who like to take pictures and post. And so we do have the resources that way, but we need something that is a lot more, one, sustainable and stable. So to help with getting the word out to the communities about the adoptable pets. Moving down,
Oh,
having more.
And sorry, we'll have Lupita move us to the next page of the PDF, please.
Okay. So going through, let's see. So our inside kennels, these are things that need pretty immediate repairs. We have a lot of our huskies and our shepherds and some of our pit bulls like to chew on our kennels. And unfortunately, we're getting to the point that we can't repair them fast enough. And so an immediate need is to get those repaired. And as far as also our automatic dog water dishes are leaking too. So a lot of things just need some repair. And I do have an update on that. I have met, I'll just do that as we kind of go through these that have just really happened. I've had a meeting with our facilities, one of the managers there, and he came out, and also one of captain and our undersheriff came, and they now walked through, and we went through every one of these areas that I'm talking about, but other areas of the shelter, and we are getting some movement for that. So we do have a fencing company who's going to be coming out in September, and that would help so we can do some of these. It's a quick fix, but it would be something that it definitely is employee safety and animal safety. So it's a high priority to get those kennels fixed. Going through the next couple things are really just equipment issues. So, and having a backlog of laundry and dishes, it's the low staffing, which they really should be focusing on other duties. And we did have inmate labor at in the past, and that has decreased. And so just trying to really maximize the amount of people that we do have here and make things more efficient. And that would be larger capacity washing machine to go with our dryer. So, but we are starting with the plumbing because there's no reason to get something brand new and great and our plumbing not handle it. So that's something that's being assessed. Same thing with the electrical. And moving down to the cat building, I know we keep talking about dogs, but those cats need attention as well. And just received one quote, and I believe there's 2 more coming for replacement of the very old system, cooling system that is in the cat building. So we are making some movement on that as well. Next slide, please. So those first things were things that I believe we could accomplish in less than 6 months. These are things that are going to take a little longer. Going through the main and side gates, that has the movement as well. That's the fencing company that's going to come. They're going to come assess that and the gates. So it's going to be a twofold effort there. Really looking at when people come into our shelter, the aesthetics of it. So if we were able to update those front adoption yards, one, they're not ADA compliant. They're not in the winter. It is not, it's not a clean place to take people to meet their animals. And that is how people are meeting the animals. So they're not walking through the kennels anymore. They are setting up appointments online, looking at the available pets. We match them with what they're looking for. And then we take out multiple dogs if interested out to these yards. So updating these yards, the walkways would need to be done. This is something that, removing all the gravel and putting a surface, whether it's turf and or cement. I'm also working with UC Davis. The Cret School of Medicine is going to be coming out at the end of next month, and we're going to be looking at how to do that as well. So moving down to our lack of resources, we talk about owned, spay, neutered. The shelter surgery center, or our big fixed rig, is not equipped to handle a lot of these larger owned animals, just based on how it is set up in there. So we really do need to figure out a way to help those members of the public needing low-cost spay neuter, and that will result in less animals coming into the shelter at some point if we can get more help for that. bigger piece is inside kennels that I talked about, the quick fix. We would like to retrofit the inside, and having updated kennels would result in higher efficiency when our staff are moving them in and out, less stress for the dogs. And those kennels would be able to be removed from this facility in the event that another site is secured and we are building, if we do decide to build somewhere else, these can be removed. And it is not going to decrease the amount of space for holding animals. It just is going to increase the conditions that they are in. It would be less stress to not have to have them moved during the cleaning. It also is going to be safer for staff and better for disease control as well. We talking about the roof and gutters. So that is something that I'm working with county facilities right now. We have a lot of leaking areas and gutters as well. So that is something that they are actively working on. And our forklift. So that's something that we use our forklift. We get weekly donations from the Yellow Food Bank and from a couple distributors. And we are the food hub for Front Street. We provide food to them and Sutter County, Solano, and we do a mutual aid to other counties. But we also use our forklift to move the donations around, and those donations go to our community members. So we have people who know every Thursday we get our shipments in, and so we're providing food, litter, and any resources that they need, and that would keep them from surrendering their pets here. So that's a huge piece, and why we need to have a reliable forklift. So it was working today. So it gets, it does have its moments. So next slide, please. Long-term plan would be to create an adoption surgery center. So where we could do those owned animal clinics, we would do shelter surgeries as well, but have a special space for owned animals, and also having that being an adoption center. And a proposed space next door to us right now, was an existing the probation buildings. That's where we have in the parking lot done our curbside clinic. So just an idea to put out there, but that is really the need of the community, is to have an adoption, a source for low cost spay neuter. And then again, with the new shelter would be entirely a new location, so in a new shelter. So, and we do have quite a few partners here, and they're listed, and the list does keep growing and changing, and always taking into consideration how the industry is changing as well. So animal sheltering has changed nationally, but just in our own county, what the needs really are. So, and the needs would be for more low-cost spay neuter and veterinary care is really what is needed. And a shelter, we just cannot provide that for the communities. So these are all lists of, this list includes resources that hopefully we can start finding the sourcing for those people who are needing it. I think that's, yep. So those are all our current post partners and people that I, bounce ideas off of, and we try to come up with plans together on how can we serve more animals and more community members. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephanie. Is there any questions or comments for staff? Carson, go ahead.
So I took to heart, you said we're not in the business of rolling through this list and approving or recommending approval. That's something you're dealing with. But as a newbie here, I want to make sure I understand what's going on. So, for example, there's a list of recent accomplishments, some of them involving new equipment and fixing facilities and all of that. And I'm not debating at all the value of at least some of these things that you're doing. Are these things built in and done within the budget and within the MOU, such as the one that our city just renewed, I guess with some COLA, or are these things that a bill is going to come to us for?
These were already included in, these have already been budgeted in over the past couple years. And so especially with the larger equipment.
And at some past point, I guess, what was the process for authorizing these actions? There is the notion of program budgeting. In other words, we in our city give our departments a certain amount of staff, a certain amount of monies for equipment and other things. We do give them some flexibility to operate as long as they're operating within those amounts. Is that how these things came about, or was there some process that, again, I'm new to this, that you went through to focus on these actions?
When I'm new to the process too. So, but with, I know with the swamp coolers and with the pressure washer, it was a proposal. So, and I requested to use the fund balance for those. So it was monies that were not part of any of the contracts, but it was a fund balance. And so that is what has been used. And then actually, yeah, and everything else has just been done by donations. So when I said the painting, and I think a lot of the other things have been through the nonprofit. So that's what has helped move some of those other projects through.
And again, I realize, we're not sitting here as a recommended body on your list of quick win opportunities and the longer terms on this list, but what's the process going forward for deciding which of those you do, which of those the county pays for from fund balances, which of these things are subject to negotiation for inclusion in our MOUs? How are the other things on the list going to be handled?
I think that's a good question that I don't, I think this is the first time we've discussed all this that I've been able to discuss this. So that's something that absolutely I'll be looking to others to decide how that process that happens.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Jim, I see your hand up. You're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry to have to do that physically, but I can't find a button on the iPhone to raise my hand.
That's okay.
So I really appreciate all the specific steps that are being suggested. I think all of those are good ideas, and I could see a lot of work went into it. I did want to clarify, though, we're not saying at this point that we're rejecting the idea of a new shelter, are we? These are interim steps with a goal still being a new shelter. A little bit confused by that.
I guess, yes. So these are just the steps of how to, right now we just need to address the constraints that Animal Services is facing, and, how can we better serve the community with what we have right now? But a new shelter is absolutely not off, the near future. It just isn't, these aren't the immediate needs, right? Addressing the immediate needs so we can continue to move forward.
Okay. Well, at some point, I would like to look at all the jurisdictions considering adding a request when developers come in asking for conditional use permits, of adding a contribution to a new shelter to that list, because it's an approach that we actually used to getting funds for the Adult Day Healthcare Center, which is going to open soon, and something that seems insurmountable in terms of cost can be something that we reach together as a goal if we're all willing to take steps to contribute. So that would just be maybe a topic for future discussion.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else with comments? Any public comment?
Mayor Cowan, my hand is raised. Rich Lansberg.
Yes, go ahead, Rich.
If I may, from Woodland's perspective, we certainly appreciate the work that Stephanie and her staff has been doing at the shelter on a daily basis. But it's kind of where Dan Carson was leading to that I'd like to ask the big question of this group, that we believed from our perspective, City of Woodland, that this group was being formed to look at animal services in general and perhaps reimagine what services might look like in 5 or 10 years, which may include a bigger conceptual process of imagining what's going to look like. Our concern, frankly, is that the costs are rising so high. We were hoping to be at some point that this group would come together and look at reimagining animal services altogether. And Jim, your idea of financing, that's a great idea. We've got to find a way to meet the needs of our county, which is growing, as we all know, but so is the cost for animal services. And so our concern would be to look at how we deliver, what the model is that we deliver services throughout the entire county, in particular our city, whether that's going to be government agencies such as Stephanie's staff, or is this going to be a venture with a vendor such as some animal rights groups, whatever, some other vendor, like other counties are doing throughout California, including across the river and all over the Bay Area. They use vendors to deliver these services and deliver them at a lower cost. And the idea, of course, and I agree with Stephanie, is to deliver good quality services for our residents and, of course, the animals that we deal with. So I think at some point we'd like to, come up with some kind of a discussion as to how we get from 2021 to a new delivery model. And I understand it's a difficult question, but one that needs to be addressed from our perspective.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else with comments?
Member Cowan, we have public comment.
Okay,
We have Lisa Gaines.
all right, welcome, Lisa.
You're all probably tired of hearing from me.
Nope.
So thank you very much for bringing up the idea that why we're here. And Stephanie's been doing a great job, and I appreciate her feedback. But the bottom line is the JPA was created to talk about the needs of the city, just as you just discussed. And this forum was created to allow the representatives of the city to go back to their cities and say, what is it that we need? So we look at the problem and then we find the solution. So I think that this is a public-private partnership, just as you suggested. Animal organizations that specialize in animal welfare should probably be delivering some of the services, although animal control has their own specialty. And I think that it would behoove us to go, or those of you who are representing your cities, to go back to your cities, gather as much information as you can from them in terms of what they feel are the priorities, and then come back together with us and we sit down as the JPA and put those all on the table and discuss how those best can be delivered and who our partners might be. I've suggested before that we bring in an expert. I've actually asked Dr. Berger, Janine Berger, I think she's the VP of San Francisco SPCA right now. She used to be faculty at UC Davis. She's both a surgeon and a behaviorist, to share with us what's being done, as you suggested, in the Bay Area and how it's working or how it's not working. But so that we have an outsider come in and give us some perspective on those things that we're looking at. But as you suggested, I think our main goal is to sit down and talk about what we need as separate cities, because our needs are really different. I think that's it. Thank you. I still have a minute.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Do we have anybody else with a hand raised?
There are no additional hands.
Okay. Is there any additional comments from the commission?
It sounds like there was a second part to this presentation, and that might take us down back to the track that Richard was just discussing. But am I right on that, or am I in error?
You are correct. If we could switch back to the PowerPoint presentation, please.
Okay.
So on the screen, and it's a little small, but it's a version of a JPA development work plan that has been shared with this group before as kind of a working outline of the efforts of the JPA. And so it started with creating a governance model, and a strategic planning process was started. And we kind of reached a bit of a crossroads in February with the, setting up, words are hard, with Stephanie being confirmed as the Director of Animal Services and really providing perspective on, both the interim and long-term needs of animal services. And so, we've had these different discussions, we've gotten this perspective. And at this point, it would be, and, just kind of hearing the discussion of the members, it might be time to, come back together to kind of discuss, okay, what is, as a group, what is our vision, mission, goals, and objectives, and to solidify those, really, and perhaps, as Lisa Gaines was suggesting, having each member of the JPA and, other parties that, are outside the JPA, but related to the JPA, to really bring those specific needs of their individual groups together and joining it into a shared vision mission for this body to move forward. So what we kind of sketched out as a possible timeline for the board to consider would be to, over the next couple of months, work on finalizing those vision mission goals, perhaps having a workshop to facilitate some of the ideas that have been raised today. And then finalizing those mission vision goals, having check-ins with city councils and boards to obtain additional direction, and then taking the next step, transforming that shared mission, vision, and goals into an operational model. So that's, different operational models, staffing, providers, and a potential direction for replacing the current shelter facilities. So wanted to get the board's thoughts and feedback on that potential sequence of events. So, perhaps gathering requirements and needs from the individual members and then convening in perhaps a workshop to really bring those together into a vision mission kind of finalization. I believe Rich is raising his hand.
Yes, I like the idea, Joanne, of a workshop that we could look at different models of what other jurisdictions are doing. Perhaps we can get some, with you or some other staff member provides us in advance of some models that are being used by local jurisdictions that support the concept of a joint effort with public and private, and maybe not, maybe it's going to be completely public. But I'd like to see some options that's available to this group to look at what we can discuss at a workshop.
Thank you. Yes, Dan.
Yeah, I also agree with Richard that at an appropriate time, a more free-flowing workshop type discussion would make sense, because here we are, it's 2:45, and it's taken you time to walk us through the material that you have and hear public comment, and really we aren't really left with much time for discussion. I guess the thing though is that maybe and maybe it needs to be longer than a 1 hour meeting. But at some point, maybe we take up Lisa or whoever you think appropriate on some kind of outsider's view. There also were the studies that were done that were in the orientation packet that you gave me, that, you know, there's good information there, that there's been some analysis done. I think giving an opportunity for a member of each of our city staffs to weigh in on the issue of what they think are the critical services that each of our cities needs. It probably won't align perfectly between the different cities, but it would help me to understand what Woodland and Winters needs are that might be distinct and different from what Davis's needs are. So a sort of information gathering session, and then perhaps after that, not necessarily the same day, to have that wide open discussion. And I think my understanding of the focus of this group is indeed, you know, what are the services we want? How do we want to model that? And then I do think the issue of capital needs tends to fall quite naturally out of the decision on what kind of business are you in. You know, I think you do try to get a handle on what it is we're trying to do operationally, and then there may be some solutions on the capital side that are obvious. And you know, I will just pledge that I'm open-minded on how we approach this. And I've said many a time, I'm on my learning curve. But this seems like a basic strategic planning process, because some of those orientation materials are a bit old at this point, and we're in a post-COVID world, and, you know, things have evolved quite a bit just for us in the last 16 months. And I would be shocked if it hasn't evolved in this professional area too.
And I know Stephanie can speak to it more than I could, but just, you know, in terms of the ways that animal services interacts with people, instead of, you know, sort of people coming in to browse animals, services are provided by appointment, and you know, a lot of information is provided online, and there's online processes for applying for adoption and things like that. So yes, definitely a lot of changes. Does it sound reasonable to this group then for each stakeholder group and member of the JPA to kind of sketch out those community needs and then return to the next meeting of this group, which would be in September, with that information and share it, perhaps preparatory to a workshop in the next couple of months?
Well, I would just add that getting that in writing so we can all read, and we can probably abbreviate the setup in these meetings and jump more quickly into the interactions. I don't want to say no presentation, but maybe that would give us a tool to use our scarce time here to jump into interactions more quickly.
Certainly, yes, we will be able to you know, coordinate with everyone to perhaps get that information in advance and distribute it with the agenda so that folks have a chance to read it ahead of time.
Yeah. I think Jim's reaching out.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree that we actually need to be building towards a shared vision of what we want to, where we want to be long term. Once I don't think we're there yet, but we could get there. Once we know where we want to be long term, where we want to go, then the short term becomes much easier. And of course, we have to take care of services on a day-to-day basis while we move forward. But at the same time, having the goal of a shared vision, I think, would really help. Some of these things we're talking about were discussed before, prior to this JPA being formed. However, it wasn't discussed with the people here, and it needs to be. We need to look at all the options. and look at how we got there and where we'd like to go in the future. With COVID, there have been changes, I think, but at the same time, I fear that some things will go back to the way they were before once, if it ever ends, once we're not wearing masks and once we're all doing what we were doing before. And then I go back to some of the facilities reports. We did a very extensive study of all county facilities, and a recommendation for a new shelter or a different shelter was one of the prime recommendations. So that would be, I think, one of the documents that I would, if it's not there in the packet, should be included. But the shared vision going forward is something we've got to achieve.
One last quick comment, if I may. I want to make sure from my prior comments, I'm not meaning to exclude UC Davis Corrette as a partner to come in the door. I am certainly not meaning to exclude the city of West Sacramento from, who is often in attendance in these meetings, as I understand it, from also participating. They may not be board members at this point, but understanding their needs again may help us all.
Yes, I definitely think it would be super important to hear from West Sacramento and Corrette and all our other partners. Thank you.
Yeah, and in addition to them, I want to make sure, we don't forget about the private sector, because I don't think any of this is going to succeed without the public-private partnership. We've talked about that many times over the last couple of years going through this. And I think, people like Lisa Gaines, we're not going to get to where we want to get to without their help and without their input. And as far as, getting input from all the cities, I completely agree with doing that. And I think it's equally as important that we get input from groups like Lisa, and what they're expecting and what they feel the needs are. I think is also very important. Because like I say, I don't think this succeeds without them.
Absolutely. So the next scheduled meeting is September 23rd. And so if it's agreeable to the board, county staff can work with the staff of each of the jurisdictions and stakeholders, and start that process of collecting the individual jurisdiction priorities so that we can bring those together into a shared vision document that'll help guide our way forward.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, is that all we have on the agenda, Eric? Okay, then I think we're done.
Thanks, Joanne. It was great.
Thank you so much.
Right.
I appreciate everybody being
Thank
here
you
today.
all. Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
Joanne. Thanks,
Thank you.
Stephanie. Good job. Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Bye.
Bye.